All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we are going to be predicting and deep diving into the NFC South. We'll be talking about each team's offseason, starting lineups, and at the end, we'll each predict the division winner. We have Shane joining us, and he's going to focus on discussing some fantasy football insight on all the NFC South teams. How are you, Shane? What teams are you keeping an eye on?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk fantasy, but then also you're adding your input when it comes to the real football side of things. So it'll be fun to kind of collaborate on that end. I haven't done this type of episode yet, so it'll be fun to try something new.
Yep. And when you look into the 2022 recap of this slugfest of a division, the Buccaneers finished first place with 8-9 record. Didn't even get to 10 wins. The
That's
Panthers,
wild.
Saints, and Falcons all had a 7-10 record and tied in that order, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of incredible how it was all within one game. And yeah, really tight division. I feel like it's going to end up being the same this year.
It'll probably be pretty tight. I personally have a team that I think will, when we give our predictions at the end, I have a team that I think will be the clear winner, but it probably will be pretty tight again.
Yep. And we'll start with one of the funner teams in the division to talk about, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to run the hell out of the ball this year, so that'll be fun to talk about in fantasy. They've got some really high valued options that we're going to talk about, so that'll be fun. When you get into the Atlanta Falcons offseason, they added Bijan Robinson in the first round, which was a little controversial. They added him with the 8th overall pick. What were your thoughts with Bijan going in the top 10?
I feel like leading up to the draft, it was like you hear that you heard these rumors about Bijan going top 10, top 12, whatever. Um, I feel like it worked out well going to the Falcons. I don't know. It kind of made it worth it going to the Falcons, as in they're a run heavy offense. They don't have anyone else. He's an immediate plug and play. Granted, for the most part, I'm sure no matter where he went, he would have been a plug and play. But like I heard rumors of him going to the Seahawks, and that would have been a disaster. I think where he went was perfect. I'm sure people say they reached on him, but with the generational talent that he is, it could be worth it.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect fit. And they also bring in Matt Collins, the receiver. I don't know if you saw the videos of him in training camp, but he just looks like a linebacker. He's just absolutely yoked.
He's massive.
It's like completely different from last year too. And he was a beast last year, opposite of Devontae Adams. He was really good actually. So that was kind of a loss for the Raiders. And he's literally the only other receiving option here in Atlanta, other than Drake London. So I'm actually kind of excited about him in fantasy. We'll talk about him in a little bit with the roster. They add Jonnu Smith to reunite with Arthur Smith, which is pretty fun. Going to be a really just stacked offense and run game, and he might help out Kyle Pitts a little bit. On the defensive side, they add Calais Campbell and David Onyemata. David Onyemata from the Saints. Caden Ellis as well from the Saints. He's going to be the starting middle linebacker for the Falcons. And then they bring Jeff Okudah from the Lions, which is high upside. It's pretty exciting. But the biggest offseason addition was Jesse Bates. In my opinion, he was the best safety in the NFL the last few years. And I think this is a big addition to the secondary. And yeah, really exciting. Their notable losses aren't too notable at all. They lost Marcus Mariota, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Casey Hayward. So nothing notable really to talk about at all. They
They,
replaced them all.
they totally upgraded this offseason.
Yeah, it's pretty slept on. Like outside of Desmond Ritter, this roster is really not bad. So they did a good job. And it all depends on Ritter, I guess.
Yeah.
And speaking of Ritter, I guess we'll just get into the um, offense and the fantasy aspect of everything. What are your thoughts on Desmond Ritter? Are you kind of just reserving judgment for his second season, or what do you?
Personally, I feel like it seems like they just keep going into their seasons with these bottom 25 quarterbacks. And it's like this is the same thing as Marcus Mariota last year. Like, what's different? I mean, I guess he's younger and has more upside. Sure. He hasn't proved anything yet. So, I mean, I guess it's a wait and see type thing. I just, it seems like they can't get anything right when it comes to quarterbacks since Matt Ryan's been gone.
Yep. He's going as the quarterback 29 in the 20th round. So pretty much as the last round of the draft or undrafted. So
Yeah.
if you want to stack him with Pitts or London or Bijan, I like is the last pick of the draft. It's fine. It could be a decent option, especially an underdog. But other than that, I don't really see him too good. And in a real football aspect, I think he's a decent quarterback too. He's a decent prospect. But all I'm gonna say is I think they're gonna be looking for a new quarterback in 2024. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic.
Yeah. I mean, he, he'll maybe add some value to your team if you're in a super flex league. You can get him as maybe your third quarterback, maybe your second. I guess he could be your super flex guy. But when it comes to a regular, just a redraft one quarterback league, he's not going to be really worth touching. But yeah,
Yeah, and when you get into the backfield, they've got a top 10 pick right now as a rookie, Bijan Robinson. He's going as the eighth overall pick and the third overall running back. So pretty incredible. The training camp videos of him have just been really electric to watch. He's a great receiver. I think he's going to be the best receiving back of this rookie class. And that says a lot because Gibbs is going to be really good too. But yeah, I'm
yeah.
really excited for Bijan.
The, his ADP right now, the 108, that's something I can get behind. Josh, if people don't know, he's obsessed with taking Bijan like top three, and he's like so stuck in his way on that. And I'm so against that, and I always fight him on that. I would never touch Bijan top three, top five, top six, but later first round pick, I would like Bijan Robinson on my team.
Yeah. I'm pretty comfortable taking him right next to Eckler. I almost want to take him above like Eckler because I feel like he's just got so much upside, and I feel like next year in drafts he's going to be like a top 2 pick. So I don't know, man. I'm really excited for him. I feel like they're going to use him in a brilliant way and just throw to him so much. And Arthur
What
Smith.
about in let's say hypothetically you're in a league, it's a one man, it's a one keeper league. It's you get one keeper. How high would you take Bijan?
I think I would decide right after Jamar Chase. I think like pick 4. I think I would go pick 4. I really
In
would.
a Yeah, in a keeper league, I think he'd be top five for me.
Yeah, in a keeper league, you kind of have to because he's going to be a top 5 pick next year. So that's just smart projecting that. Like
Totally.
it's just good value. And there's 2 running backs behind him that we kind of have to talk about too. Algier, who was really good as a rookie last year, he's being drafted as a running back 43, and he would be like a top 25 running back if Bijan wasn't in the equation here. So that's an interesting option if Bijan was to go down, God forbid. Tyler Algier was really good. And Cordarrelle Patterson is going as a running back 60. So if he has any role in the offense, it'll probably be as a receiver. But you never know. If someone goes down, he could be pretty good. He was good last year.
These are both great insurance running backs to have in case Bijan goes down. But I like if I was a Bijan manager, I like having these two type of running backs behind Bijan. It's like they're obviously not going to take his role, but they're just going to help him kind of stay healthy, give him breaks when he needs it. I feel like they're going to do a good job of not overworking Bijan because they are a run heavy offense. They have options behind him, and I do think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely gonna help him in the long run and help him in the long run and help his value in the long run.
Yep.
Really exciting. And let's get into the receiving core, which, like we talked about earlier, it's kind of 2 guys right now. Drake London is an exciting option. He's going as the wide receiver 23, the 7th pick in the 5th round. I like that value. I actually like Drake London the more I think about it and the more I like watch the Falcons back. He was honestly pretty solid. And in fantasy, he was like somewhat consistent last year as a rookie in a really difficult situation. So I like Drake London a lot. I'm drafting him in leagues now. And Mac Hollins is really intriguing as a late round option because I mean no one's drafting him, but he's their wide receiver too, and he's good. He's a good receiver. He's a beast on the outside, and he comes down with a lot of balls. So I feel like he's actually gonna have some boom weeks too.
For Drake London, I like him too. I definitely think he has a lot of upside, but personally, I feel like the mid fifth round that's a round where you still have a lot of value there. So for example, I want to name off some names. So I'm a little, I'd rather wait on Drake London. If he falls later in the 6th, maybe I'd snag him. But there's in the middle of the 5th round, you got Christian Watson going. Would you rather have Christian Watson or Drake London?
Yeah, I'd rather have Watson.
Okay. Would you rather have I mean DeAndre Hopkins is going at the 4-5 turn. Would you rather have D Hop or Drake London?
I think I'd rather have D Hop. It's really close though.
Oh my, okay. I'm gonna keep going. Would you rather have four, five, 4 picks before him? Terry McLaurin is going. Would you rather have Terry McLaurin or Drake London?
Mm.
Give me Terry.
I think I'd take Terry. I
Okay.
think he's right after Terry. Am I ranking
Wait,
back?
I'm not done. At the 3 picks before him, you got DJ Moore going. Would you rather have DJ Moore with your 5th round pick or Drake London? Give me DJ Moore.
I think I'd rather have DJ Moore.
Wait, I got another one for you, brother.
Man.
Would you rather have
You're not proving my point at all right now, man.
one pick after him, Jerry Judy? Would you rather have Jerry Judy or Drake London? So
I'd rather have Judy.
all I'm saying is I agree with you. I think Drake London's going to be a really good wide
Yeah.
receiver, as good as he can be on this offense with this quarterback. But look at those options around him. This ADP for Drake London is absurd.
Yeah, I think like a round later, if he starts falling, I think it's good. I do think he'll be a solid real life NFL receiver though.
Yeah.
And Scotty Miller's the wide receiver 3. Not much to talk about there. If you want to roster Scotty Miller, then be my guest if someone goes down. But what are your thoughts on Kyle Pitts? I know you don't like Kyle Pitts, and Josh likes him, and I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah. I feel like it's like every other episode I talk about him. He's it just seems like nothing's changing. He's still on a run heavy offense. I'm repeating myself. I'm stuck in my ways here. He's on a run heavy offense. He's with a unproven quarterback who's also young. He's never played. Well, he played the last 4 games last year, but he's never really played a full season of NFL football. Marcus Mariota is a veteran, and he last year, look what he wasn't able to do for Kyle Pitts. Now you add in is he a 2nd-year guy? Desmond Ridder, was he a rookie last year?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's a 2nd-year guy. He started garbage time couple games end of the season last year, and we're asking him to support Kyle Pitts when they're on a run heavy offense with their top 10 draft capital and Bijan Robinson. And we're seeing Bijan in all these training camp videos lining up. He's like running routes in the slot and stuff. So I'm so out on Kyle Pitts. I'm gonna have to see something from him before I'm in on him. And right now he's going end of the 5th round. I would much rather have a guy like Dallas Goedert who's going beginning of the 6th round. I'd rather have a guy like George Kittle, Darren Waller, Pat Freiermuth, Evan Ingram. So yeah, that's how I feel about Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, 5th, 6th round is really scary for Kyle Pitts. The way he played last year, I kind of do find myself gravitating towards waiting for like Waller or Goddard. I feel like that's a little safer and smarter.
The upside, I mean, I get the upside is there with Kyle Pitts. He's a great athlete. He was the 4th overall pick. He has a draft capital to be one of the greatest tight ends. It's just he hasn't proved anything yet, and he's not set up success. He's not set up for success yet. I feel like to prove us doubters wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll see. They didn't really bring in any receivers, so they could plan on using him like a receiver. He has upside. I guess it's just we'll wait. We'll wait to see. But anything else you want to talk about with this Falcons offense before we move on?
No.
One thing I did want to say, their offensive line is great. Like that helps Bijan tremendously. Like Chris Lindstrom was the best guard in the NFL last year. Caleb McGarry was great. That right side is awesome. They brought in Bergeron in the 2nd round. It's just a fantastic offensive line. So that is a big boost.
Yeah, that's great for Bijan for sure.
Yeah, they might have like the best offensive line. So that is definitely something to know. That helps this offense in fantasy.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I don't think Jonnu Smith's gonna really do anything when it comes to fantasy football value, so he's not really worth talking about.
All right. Then I will quickly just gloss over this defense real quick. It is muchly improved, hugely improved. I keep saying muchly improved. It's hugely improved. Jesse Bates is a great safety. It's going to tremendously help this secondary. And someone I really wanted to talk about is Clark Phillips coming out of Utah. He was a beast. He's just such a smart, like high IQ football player. He's always around the ball making plays. It makes out for his height. He's really short, but he's just such a great football player and always making plays. I think he's going to be a great starter for them down the road with AJ Terrell, the best corner in the. Sorry, that was bold. One of the best corners in the NFL. But yeah, I love the secondary. They brought in Caden Ellis, which I think is going to be fun. And then they have a really stacked defensive line now, bringing in Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Zach Harrison, who's fun out of Ohio State, and Grady Jarrett is one of the more underrated players in the NFL. So really improved defense. I'm excited to see what they can do. With
Yeah,
that, oh, sorry.
just this whole Falcons team as a whole. I never really like I say I don't follow the Falcons, completely. They did some really good just overall upgrading. And we didn't even mention, Bud Dupree. I get he's older, but he's a seasoned veteran that's can definitely bring value. This Falcons, I'm excited to follow them this year. Especially, I just finished quarterback and they were fun to watch on there. So I'm excited to see what they can do this year.
Yeah, they've actually filled out like a pretty decent starting 11. So it's a pretty good roster. I'm excited. And then another team that's going to be competitive, the New Orleans Saints, who should be fun to talk about with the fantasy football aspect as well. We'll get right into their offseason because that's a big part of this team. And they brought in Derek Carr, who was very ugly last season. I'll be the first to say I watched a lot of Raiders. He definitely did not play too good. Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams really elevated his play. But hopefully he can be rejuvenated here in NOLA. It's going to be fun to see. They bring in Jamal Williams, who will definitely have an impact in fantasy. I think he can be their goal line back immediately. And if Kamara misses any time, he's going to be a perfect, maybe the best backup replacement in the NFL. And then they bring in Foster Moreau to come over from LA to join Derek Carr, which is really fun. And then on the defense, they just bring in two defensive linemen, Kalen Saunders and Brian Breesy. I really love Brian Breesy as a prospect. What were your thoughts on Derek Carr though and Jamal Williams?
Uh, I'm really excited for when it comes to fantasy. I'm really excited for Derek Carr to be on this team. Last year they were dealing with mostly Andy Dalton, and when you look at the weapons that they have, which we'll go over, I mean they all take a big step forward with a guy like Derek Carr throwing to them. I'm a big fan of this team with Derek Carr, and I don't want all the pieces because that's not how you build a fantasy team. But I want at least one piece from this team for sure.
Yeah, Chris Olave is getting really, really attractive to me the more I think about it. I guess we'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, I'm really excited to talk about Chris Olave. Their notable losses aren't very notable as well. They lost Andy Dalton, who honestly was low-key better than Derek Carr last year. He was a really solid quarterback for the Saints. They weren't anything crazy, but he was like putting up production and fantasy for the Saints offense and stuff. They lost Marquez Callaway and Adam Troutman and Sean Payton to the Broncos. They got a first-round pick back for Sean Payton, though, which is pretty nice and pretty rare. And they also lose David Onyemata and Caden Ellis to the Falcons, like we just barely mentioned. And then they lose Marcus Davenport to the Vikings, which kind of hurts. He's pretty good. But with that, we'll get into their roster and their offense. And first, we'll talk about Derek Carr, who is being drafted as the quarterback 21 and the third pick in the 15th round. And I feel like that kind of is just the perfect summary of Derek Carr, like quarterback 21. I feel like that's a pretty good representation.
I feel like this is great value. If you want to wait on quarterback, you have those later guys. I'd rather have Derek Carr, I think, over Russell Wilson, over Jimmy G, Matthew Stafford. That's close. I definitely think he's good value if you wait on quarterback. I would be fine having him as my starting quarterback. It wouldn't be a great starting quarterback, but I don't think it would be god awful. And you could even have him as your backup quarterback if you're someone who wants to draft two quarterbacks somewhat early, I guess. And especially in a super flex, he would be a great. You have to get him pretty early in a super flex, obviously, but he would be a great second quarterback to have.
Yeah, like if you got Olave, I feel like you could definitely be comfortable starting Derek Carr. I feel like that is honestly a pretty slept on stack the more I think about it.
That's a really nice stack to have because you don't got to not waste. That's not the right word, but you don't have to spend high draft capital on a quarterback who's still going to be produce, and you're going to have a great wide receiver out of him.
Yeah. And one thing I'm really interested to see is how this running back room plays out. Alvin Kamara is going as the 11th pick in the 6th round as the RB25. Jamal Williams is going as the RB34, and Kendry Miller is going as the RB46. So they're all pretty close. They're all probably going to have a workload. I just don't know how big Alvin Kamara's workload especially will be. I will say I find myself drafting Alvin Kamara recently. I think it's just because the options around where he's going are not really proven, and Alvin Kamara is very proven. I think that's the one thing like I'm holding on to with Alvin Kamara. I'm not too confident that he's going to be great, but I do think Jamal Williams is a great goal line back. It's just with fantasy, with this crowded running back room, it's really tough.
For NFL purposes, I feel like this is a really, really good running back room to have. But when it comes to fantasy football, this kind of sucks. I personally, I want to stay away from it because I don't know. It could be different from a week to week basis. Assuming they're all healthy every week. It could be an Alvin Kamara week. It could be a Jamal Williams week. It could be a Kendrick Miller week. It could be all three combined, which gives you no value. So it is definitely, I'd say, probably top three muddiest backfields. I'm trying to think of some more. Maybe
I
top
think
two.
that's definitely top three. Definitely. I
Top
was
two
trying to
muddiest.
think of any that were muddier.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Seahawks, maybe the Eagles. But yeah, they're definitely top three muddiest backfields, which makes it hard. Kamara going into the sixth round. Yeah, he's definitely proven, and that would make it hard because you got Rashad White going 2 picks after him. Would you rather have Rashad White, who has the backfield to himself and he's a PPR machine, or a proven Alvin Kamara who's in a muddy backfield?
Yeah, I'd probably have Rashad White.
I would too, but that's not too far off.
It isn't. They're similar players. I mean, obviously
Rashad,
Rashad White wants to be what Kamara was. So
yeah, and Rashad White's still a question mark. We don't know for
yeah.
sure if it's going to be what we personally. I've talked about him a lot too in episodes prior. I like him, but we don't know. He's a big question mark.
And maybe Kamara's a safer option than anyone thinks. Like maybe he's like Joe Mixon right now, and he's just being underdrafted for no reason, and he's gonna have a good connection with Derek Carr, and he's gonna rejuvenate and be really good because he's a freak. You never know.
Yeah, he's still a great veteran running back. It's just hard because of who else is there in the backfield. I mean, for all we know, we come out, he's out there getting most of the work, and then there's tossing Jamal Williams over here and there for goal line work, and Kendrick Miller is irrelevant. Who knows? We're gonna have to wait and see for that. But right now, it seems pretty muddy.
Yeah, one that's really hard to predict. Kind of staying away from it right now. We'll go into the receiving core. It's really exciting at the top with Chris Olave, who's going as the wide receiver 12 and the second overall pick in the third round. I'm really excited for Chris Olave. I find myself moving him up my board like every single day. He's just got a really good option. And when I think about his connection with Derek Carr, what it can be, I'm pretty excited for it. I think they're going to be really good.
I am a huge Chris Olave fan. I am so excited for him this year. I hope I can get him this year. But either way, I'm still going to be following him to see what he does. It's hard. Yeah, Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle. I guess Chris Olave is kind of his wide receiver one on the team, but they're all, to me, those four guys are like the same, and they're all such great wide receivers, and they're all going right around. They're all going in the third round, pretty much. So it's going to be hard to get multiple of those guys on your team. But Chris Olave, I guess you could say, is the one. Sure, Michael Thomas is there, but is he there? I mean, it's Michael Thomas. We haven't seen him since 2019, 2020. I'm so stoked for Chris Olave this year.
Yeah, I find myself moving Olave over all those guys you just mentioned. And I guess the one thing that would hold him back is if Michael Thomas had a rejuvenation season, which he had a good few weeks last year, and then it just fell off and he got hurt and he didn't even come back, which is just typical Michael Thomas, which is unfortunate. He's good when he's healthy. He's being drafted as a wide receiver 43. It's not terrible if he has a season like he did last year before he got hurt, but I don't really rely on him staying healthy. Rashid Shaheed, you like Rashid Shaheed. He's going as a wide receiver 67. That's definitely still he's fun.
This is a great value wide receiver right here. The three, me, you, and Josh, we've talked about, taking value in those later rounds. This is a value you want to take. I know he's on a rookie. We mentioned the guys like Jordan Addison. Those are also value. Zay Flowers. Those are value guys you want who can, when I say value, I mean like those guys can break out. Rashid Shaheed, he can break out. He's not a rookie, but this dude can break out. He proved it last year. He can have those big 60-yard touchdown plays. If Michael Thomas hurts his foot again like he has the last 4 years, Rashid Shaheed's right there, right behind Chris Olave. Who knows? Maybe he's more involved than Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is healthy. I definitely want as much Rashid Shaheed as I can get this year.
Yeah, he's a burner. So in your high variance leagues, definitely take him because he's going to have some boom weeks. And yeah, he's starting the season as a wide receiver 3, and if Michael Thomas does go down, he's going to be the wide receiver 2. Behind them, they have A.T. Perry, who was a prospect I liked. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get, but he was pretty good. They traded Adam Troutman for him, and they brought in Brian Edwards, which is pretty funny that he's still playing. And Traquan Smith has been here for a while, but yeah, no one else to really talk about. They have a pretty good tight end room, though. I like Jawan Johnson. He was really good last year. I mean, he's being drafted as a tight end 22, which is definitely a steal. That's definitely too low. I would draft him even higher if they didn't have so many tight ends. They have Taysom Hill, who is being drafted as a tight end 24, and he was pretty productive last year still with Sean Payton leaving. And they brought in Jimmy Graham, who's apparently been impressing in camp, which just makes me laugh. That's pretty hilarious. That's pretty crazy if you made the team. And they also brought in Foster Moreau, like we mentioned. So they have a lot of options at tight end.
I think the tight end conversation here is the exact same conversation as the running back conversation we just had about with the Saints. This is such a muddy tight end room. I mean, Jesse James is there too. He's going to catch some passes. Jawan Johnson's going to be the one, but they wanted Foster Moreau. They went after him. They got him. Foster Moreau is going to get plenty of touches, and then obviously Taysom Hill. He's going to do some weird crap, and it's going to take away from all these guys. This is a muddy tight end room, but there could be some late round value in there, especially if one of them goes down. But NFL wise, that's a really good receiving core to have at the tight end room for sure. Fantasy wise, muddy.
Yeah, really fun group for sure. Yeah, overall decent offense. There's a really good option, and then a few options that I'm kind of shying away from, kind of looking elsewhere. But I might find myself falling into some Saints on my teams.
I didn't realize. Benjamin's on the Saints too.
Oh yeah,
he getting some first team reps for the Cardinals last year.
Yeah, he did, and then they released him mid-season, and then the Saints picked him up just randomly. That was so weird.
Wow, that's wild. Okay.
And I guess we didn't mention their offensive line. Their offensive line definitely could be better. Trevor Penning has a lot of potential, though, and Ramczyk is an absolute beast. The interior definitely is questionable, so we'll see how they can do. I'll talk about the defense real quick. They bring in Nathan Shepard and Kalen Saunders on the interior, and Brian Breesy, who I really liked. I hope he can start ASAP because he's a playmaker. Cameron Jordan's still there. This is probably his last season. He's getting up there in age. I could see him working for NFL Network in a year. Pete Werner, Demario Davis, and Zach Bond is a really good linebacking core. Some beasts that can attack the line of scrimmage in the football. Alontae Taylor was a beast last year for the Saints as a corner, outside corner with Marshawn Lattimore. And then they got Bradley Roby in the slot, who's been there for a few years. He's been a really underrated corner for a few years.
I cannot believe Bradley Roby is still in the NFL. I remember him back on the Broncos like in 2014. That was almost 10 years ago. I can't believe he's in the NFL.
He's been starting ever since, which is pretty incredible. It's just very quietly. I guess you'll see him on Red Zone every now and then getting last year they had Chris Harris Jr. on this team too, which is pretty funny.
That is hilarious.
But yeah, Bradley Roby is still solid. Still a good starting slot corner. But yeah, Marshawn Lattimore is a beast. And then they have Tyrann Mathieu as a safety, which is pretty huge. And they brought in Marcus May last year. So pretty solid secondary.
I just want to add one thing. I don't know who Smoke Monday is, but I hope he can be elite in the NFL. That is the craziest name I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely one of the better names coming out of the draft the last few years.
It's hilarious. Oh, Nephi Sewell's on this team. Wow.
Yeah, he's a exciting athletic linebacker. Hopefully he can blossom. I think actually Chase Hansen from Utah is on this team too. So some athletic linebackers.
Never mind. I don't know why I thought Kyle Phillips was a Utah guy too.
But no, yeah, this defense, it does. This defense will be good. It always is. But we'll move on to the Carolina Panthers, who had a really, really exciting offseason. They had a really exciting quarterback prospect coming in, and I'm excited to talk about him. So we'll go into their offseason. You got to start with Bryce Young out of Alabama, the first overall pick. They traded up from 9 to get him. I absolutely adored Bryce as a prospect. He had so many shades of Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and prime Russell Wilson when watching his film. He's just so clean as a player. They bring in Andy Dalton to be his backup. They bring in Miles Sanders, going to be the 3 down back, so that should be interesting for fantasy. They bring in Adam Thielen and DJ Chark to be their outside receivers. Hayden Hurst is going to be their starting tight end. And then they bring in Ajiro Evero, which is going to be huge for their defense from Denver. He's a very good defensive coordinator, one of the better young defensive minds. And they bring in Von Bell as a safety for them. What are your thoughts on Bryce Young and Miles Sanders and Thielen coming in?
I mean, when it comes to dynasty, Bryce Young, he's obviously not obviously, he's going much earlier, but redraft. I feel like guys like this, sure he's the first overall quarterback, but look at Trevor Lawrence. He wasn't really anything his rookie year. Granted, he kind of had a pretty bad situation. I guess there could be value when it comes to just a regular PPR redraft league for a guy like Bryce Young. If you want to wait, you can probably hold him on your bench. I definitely think he's worth a stash on your bench and just waiting to see what happens with him. But Miles Sanders, I think that's exciting. They paid him to be their guy. He's not that old either. He's like 25 years old. He's still in his prime age for running backs. Their running back room, their wide receiver room is definitely not disappointing, but it's just kind of not intriguing. Adam Thielen, yeah, they're paying him. I think they're paying him isn't he like getting fully guaranteed contract or something nuts?
Yeah, they're actually paying him. Yeah,
but he's getting old. When it comes to fantasy, I don't want any Adam Thielen. DJ Chark's been all over the place. I don't want anything to do with him when it comes to fantasy. Terrace Marshall, I can't believe he's still on the roster. I guess they're just not giving up on him, which, hey, kudos to them. The only guy I'm interested in when it comes to their wide receiver room is their rookie Jonathan Mingo. I mean, I mentioned it with Rashid Shaheed. He's a guy that you can get late and hold on and hope for a breakout. That's kind of the only value when it comes to their wide receiver room.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Jonathan Mingo in a dynasty aspect. He's really, in my opinion, going to be the wide receiver one and coming into 2024. I think he can develop into like an AJ Brown type of player, and as their wide receiver 5 to start the season, I think that's a great way for him to develop. I don't know how effective he's going to be in fantasy early on. Hopefully he can develop into like a league winner type of rookie receiver though. That'd be fun.
So Jonathan Mingo's going, middle of the 12th round right now. I like playing this game. Would you rather have Jonathan Mingo, or would you rather have Packers wide receiver 2, who's going a couple picks after him, Romeo Doubs?
Ooh, I think I'd have Dobbs. He's gonna be starting. So,
and I that one's actually really close. I think I'd rather have Dobbs. I think he's more of a plug and play week one. Rather, I think we may have to wait for Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd's going right around him. I'd rather have Jonathan Mingo over Tyler Boyd.
Yeah.
I think where he's going is definitely a good value to just kind of stash on your bench and wait, and he could break out sooner than others.
Yeah, he's a really fun player. Really good. And yeah, DJ Chark is interesting. He probably is their best receiver physically right now, which is a little interesting. Terrace Marshall did end the season pretty good, so hopefully he can be a little breakout option. He is being drafted as a wide receiver 92, so he's kind of going undrafted as well. He's kind of waiver wire addition, so he could be someone to look out for. He is going to start day one. But yeah, their offensive line is really, really good, especially in the run game. That's something to note. Ike Ekwonu is a monster. And yeah, Miles Sanders is going to be the 3-down back, like Frank Reich said. And Chuba Hubbard isn't the greatest. I'll be honest. I had him in fantasy last year. Just watching him, he didn't look that great on the field. He kind of looked like he lost some athleticism. So if he's their backup, I think Miles Sanders really will be the three-down back, and I do find myself taking him over like Alexander Madison and those type of running backs in that tier. I kind of find myself having Miles Sanders at the top of that tier.
Yeah, I do really like Miles Sanders this year. He's definitely going around guys, other running backs, I guess I should say. I'm not looking at wide receivers necessarily, but other running backs, like you mentioned Alexander Madison. That one's really tough for me. I think I would rather have Alexander. That one's actually just Alexander Madison's on a better offense. They're both those guys are the clear-cut number ones. I don't think you can go wrong either way with those guys. Um, you got J.K. Dobbins going right before him. I think I'd rather have Miles Sanders over J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I go back and forth a lot, but as of right now, I do have Miles Sanders over like Madison and
What
Dobbins is close. Dobbins is close.
would you rather have, Joe Mixon or Miles Sanders?
Oh, Mixon for sure. Mixon is a tier above. I have Mixon higher than a lot of people though.
True, you do. Okay.
All right. What are your thoughts on Hayden Hurst? You drafting any Hayden Hurst as a tight end 25?
Nah. I'm not touching any Hayden Hurst. I think he's going to be really good, a really good weapon for rookie Bryce Young, but for fantasy, no, not worth it.
Yeah, in real life, he is going to be a good option because Bryce Young, I guess I haven't really talked about him, which is crazy because I love him so much. He's just such a good quarterback, like throwing over the middle. He's such a smart, composed quarterback. He's just everything that you want in a franchise quarterback. So I'm really confident that he's going to be good. And I think he's going to spread the ball around. So Hayden Hurst probably will have some games where he's good. So he actually might be rosterable if you have a really bad tight end room. And he's probably going to be a waiver wire pickup.
He's probably going to be a week to week. I bet he's going to be one of the better streaming options week to week. Like, oh crap, Hayden Hurst had 12 points last week. He's going to be the guy that a lot of people are dropping a good chunk of their fab on.
Yep. And then I will quickly talk about this Panthers defense, which is led by Ejiro Evero coming over. And you have to start up front talking about the Brian Burns, who's just an absolute beast, havoc wreaker, top 10 edge rusher already. He's ascending into that Von Miller career arc. I really think he can be that type of player. He's such a special talent, and absolutely love Brian Burns. He switched to number 0 this year, so that should be pretty fun to see. They've got Derek Brown on the interior, who's an absolute beast as well. One of the more underrated players right now. He's a beast, but he's also a great pass rusher. They bring in Shy Tuttle from the Saints, which was underrated. Also, Deshaun Williams from the Broncos, also underrated. Shaq Thompson's a really good middle linebacker, so I love that. And then in the secondary, they have J.C. Horn, who's a top 10 corner, in my opinion. He's going to be a breakout player this year as well. I think he's going to be a top 10 corner as well this year. And I think he can be on the Patrick Surtain tail. I don't think he can be Patrick Surtain, but I think he can be up there. Really good prospect. He was drafted before Patrick Surtain, so really good player. They bring in Von Bell, so definitely an upgrade in their safety room. Jeremy Chin is an absolute beast. They have him at nickel right now, which will be interesting, but they move him all around that defense. And Ejiro Evero is going to have these guys playing very well. Anyone you want to talk about on this defense?
The only thing I want to mention is I'm excited to see J.C. Horn back. Didn't he go down pretty early last year? It was a foot or Achilles or something.
Yep. Yeah, he did. He missed the season. He started really good, and then he missed the season. And yeah, that's kind of his problem. He's always injured, but when he's on the field, he's great.
Yeah, I remember the game he went down. I think it was I feel like it was a primetime game for some reason. I was watching it, and he's having a crazy good game.
I think he had a pick 6 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see him back and healthy.
Yeah, I think that was against the Falcons, but yep. We'll move on to the Buccaneers, the last team we'll talk about, and it's the Tom Brady-less Buccaneers. It's a new era. They move on from Tom Brady after a long, I guess not a long time, but a few years, and they get a Super Bowl from it. So, pretty worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah. Worth it, and they bring in the Baker Mayfield. When you look into their offseason, they bring in Baker Mayfield, pretty exciting. They bring in Dave Canales as offensive coordinator from Seattle. I think he'll actually complement Baker Mayfield pretty well. He could have a decent rejuvenation season. It's something to look out for. No one's really predicting it. He came over last year in LA on a few days' notice and played pretty good on Thursday Night Football. He's a good quarterback. He's always got a chip on his shoulder. I think he could be a decent option. Do you know what is he going as right now in fantasy? He's going undrafted. That's for
Baker,
sure.
Yeah,
quarterback 33.
Yeah, he's got a backup going over him.
Yeah, so he's not even going as a starting quarterback. So if you want to stack Godwin or Evans with Baker, it could be a decent option. What are your thoughts on Baker though?
I think Baker is plenty serviceable for the weapons that we're going to talk about, which the weapons on this team are very veteran, but high end wide receiver, fantasy wide receivers. Everyone they've been around for a while. I think he's going to be able to support them good enough. I don't think it will be terrible. It won't be Super Bowl Tom Brady great. It'll be okay.
Yep. And then quickly going over their other additions, nothing too crazy. They brought in Matt Filer to be the starting left guard. And then in the draft, they bring in Kalijah Cansey in the first round, which is a pretty fun interior defensive lineman, and Greg Gaines as well on the interior. So they're going to have a stacked defensive line next to Vita Vea. And then they also bring in Ryan Neal, who's an underrated safety from Seattle. But we have to talk about their losses because they lost not only Tom Brady, but a lot of people. I'm going to take a deep breath. They lost Leonard Fournette, Julio Jones, Tom Brady, Cameron Brate, Shaq Mason, Donovan Smith, who's going to start for the Super Bowl winning Chiefs as left tackle, and Sean Murphy Bunting and Keanu Neal. So a lot of those players are going to be starting elsewhere with their new teams. So definitely going to be hard to replace all those players. Their draft was decent, but yeah, it's going to be a pretty tough task, and I don't see a lot of wins coming out of the Buccaneers. They might get last in the division. They will get last in the division.
I see a lot of notable losses on their defense with no really notable additions on their defense. I feel like this defense is going to be terrible, and that could eat into how valuable the fantasy weapons are on the other end of the ball. If someone's defense is terrible and they're getting blown out, they don't play a whole quarter. It's just how it goes, and that's kind of something we're looking at right here with the Bucks.
Yeah, that's something that really fell off last year was the defense, and kind of what ended that Tom Brady era in Tampa was just nothing really clicked. The defense and offense both just stopped clicking, and it was a complete disaster. We'll go on to the offense, and there are some pretty good fantasy options. We'll actually start with this receiving core because that's where the real value and the great stars of this team are. Chris Godwin is going as a wide receiver 26. Mike Evans is going as wide receiver 33. Chris Godwin in the 10th or in the 5th round, and Mike Evans in the 7th round. I agree with that. I think Godwin should be better than or higher than Mike Evans. That I think is going to have a better season in this scheme and offense. I think Chris Godwin will actually have a pretty solid and productive season with Baker. I think Baker will kind of rely on him in the intermediate game. So that'll be fun. Mike Evans will have some boom weeks, of course, as Mike Evans, he always does. But I'm not really looking at drafting Mike Evans as the wide receiver 26, as the wide receiver 33. I think there's other options I like, and I don't know. He kind of scares me, but he could have some boom weeks.
Let's play the game. Let's play my favorite game. Okay. Mike Evans. It's called the Mike Evans or game. Okay. Okay. Mike Evans or pretty much going at the exact same pick as him, Deontay Johnson.
Ooh, that's a tough one, actually.
That one's really hard.
That's tough.
I
think I'm taking Deontay Johnson.
I think I'm taking Deontay Johnson there.
Barely.
But
that's really close.
Okay. All right. Mike Evans or he's going a little bit after Mike Evans, but Jahan Dotson.
Oof. I feel like Evans is going to how far are they apart on ADP?
6 picks.
Oh, really?
Picks, yeah.
Oh, wow. I think I'd actually take Evans, surprisingly.
I think I would rather have the safe veteran who's probably going to hit his 10th 1,000 receiving yard season in a row. I think I'd rather have Mike Evans over him. Let's do one more. Let's
I guess it probably would depend on how my team's built, but that is really close.
Yeah. Mike Evans or Christian Kirk, who's going a couple picks before him.
That's Christian Kirk's going before him. Oh.
Yeah, he's going 3 picks before Mike Evans.
Yeah, I think I might take Mike Evans too. I think it might be higher on Mike Evans than I might have thought originally.
I think I'd rather have Mike Evans over Kirk. That's close. But yeah, I was going to say this is the year, well, not the year. This is a year where Mike Evans, his ADP's fallen a little bit, and you can get better value out of him rather than having to draft him like last year around the 5th round. You get him a couple rounds later. than Chris Godwin, and he could very well finish higher than Chris Godwin. Is it's a coin flip, I think. Um, I think Mike Evans is a good value. He'd be a great wide receiver, depending on how your draft is going. He'd be a great wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 to have on your team. You know, as a veteran like Mike Evans.
And then you have Russell Gage in the slot, who's always a reliable option. Going as a wide receiver 100, pretty much undrafted. I guess that's actually not a bad option. He's going to be starting, and if one of those receivers goes down, he's going to be actually startable in fantasy.
When Chris Godwin goes down, yes.
Yeah, when one of those two, because both of them are somewhat injury prone the last few
Yeah.
years. They bring in Trey Palmer, who's also a pretty electric, fast receiver. So definitely watch out for that in Dynasty. Looking in their running back room, they have Rashad White and absolutely no one else. Rashad White is going as the running back 26, the first pick in the 7th round. He changed his number to number 1. He's going to be their 3-down back, their starter. What are your thoughts on Rashad? I'm really excited for him.
I am very excited for Rashad White. I know we talked about him briefly earlier. Yeah, sure. Like I said, he's still a question mark, but the upside here with what he wasn't. It's weird because like it's not like he played great last year, but when he was in, the fact that he had those, it's the PPR value that really gets me, and the fact that he's all alone in that backfield. Um, and he's coming into here, you know, day one, no more Leonard Fournette. I'm excited for him in the 7th round. He's also, depending on how your draft is going, he could be your 3rd running back. He could be your 2nd running back. And call me crazy. If I'm waiting on running back, I would not mind having him as my RB1.
Yeah, if you're going no running back, him as your RB1 is huge. Like if you could get someone like Rashad White as your RB1, if you're going no running back and he kind of falls, that's huge. I agree with that. He's got a lot of upside. He's a great receiver. He was a really good prospect coming out. And just like none of the running backs behind him at all are decent at all. Like they're so bad.
Like I would rather have Rashad White. You got David Montgomery going a few picks after him. That's a muddy backfield. I'd rather have Rashad White over David Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have Rashad White over. This might be a little bit of a, I don't want to say hot take, but Cam Akers is going about a round sooner. I think I'd rather have Rashad White over Cam Akers.
Yeah, that's really close, but I think so too. I think he's got more receiving upside, so that's probably
yeah
the tiebreaker there. And their offensive line isn't bad. They have something kind of fun. They have Tristan Wirfs moving over to the left tackle, with Luke Goedeke moving over to the right side, who kind of struggled last year as a rookie. And then they have a solid center with Ryan Jensen, obviously, and Matt Filer coming over. And then Cody Mock was a really fun prospect, good 2nd round pick. So it's going to be solid. Do you have any thoughts on Cade Otton? Do you think he's relevant? He's a tight end 34. I feel like that's a low key kind of low for what he can be.
I think he's going to be. I think he's going to. I don't want to. He's definitely going
to outperform 34. That's
definitely going to outperform his ADP. He's going to be. He's probably going to go undrafted, but he's going to be a guy like I mentioned with Hayden Hurst. He's going to be a streaming option week to week basis that we're dropping fab on, depending on what he did the week before. Because he's really, I mean, he's probably the only option in the tight end room. He's going to be the main guy out there. I do like Cade Otton actually this year.
Yeah, he's a good tight end. He's a really solid tight end actually, and I feel like as a tight end 34, he's going to be a starter for a decent offense that's going to be scoring. I think he's actually being undervalued for sure.
Yep.
I'll quickly talk about this defense. It is definitely losing pieces. It's relying on a lot of young talent, and it has absolutely no depth. That's kind of the thing that's going to hold this defense back the most, is if it has any injuries to the starting group, it's going to be a problem. But their starting group looks all right with Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea, Greg Gaines, and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. He needs to definitely prove a lot, but definitely a solid D-line. The D-line is definitely the deepest part of their team. Devin White has struggled massively as a coverage linebacker the last few years. He's a good run defender, and Levante David's an absolute beast. He's definitely the best piece of this defense. Him and Jamel Dean, who's the headliner of that secondary. He's a absolutely beast of a corner, one of the more slept on corners in the NFL, top 15 for sure. It's probably being disrespectful, honestly. Carlton Davis across from him is not bad. Zion McCollum starting is interesting. I really liked him as a prospect. He has a lot of upside. He reminded me of Tariq Woolen coming out of the same class. There's upside there, but he hasn't really played much, so that'll be interesting. And then Antoine Winfield. Sorry, I disrespected him earlier. He's definitely probably the best player on this defense. He's a absolute monster. He's a game changer.
Yeah. Only thing I want to say is, as I'm just kind of going through their starters on defense, I feel like 80% of it is like almost the same as a Super Bowl winning team, but these guys are just getting older. Like, correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, but yeah, Vita Vea, Devin White, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Jamel Dean, Antoine Winfield, Carlton Davis. Was Ryan Neal there too, or no?
Not Ryan Neal. He's new this year, but yeah, literally everyone else is
All those
starting.
guys. It's weird how bad their defense is that still with those guys that were on that great defense back when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like their starting group on paper should be good with like Greg Gaines and Ryan Neal filling in and Canty filling in some spots. But yeah, there's just a lot of regression going on with David, Devin White. I mean, David's still good, but Devin White's regressed and he's young, which is sad. And what's his name? Shaq Barrett has massively regressed as a pass rusher, which is kind of sad.
When did Shaq Barrett change his number to 7?
Oh, I don't like that. That must have been this offseason.
I think that's the problem because that is a very ugly number.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he stays healthy, but that's terrible. That's definitely been his problem, his health. So maybe the number will change that. But yeah,
maybe.
Interesting defense. I guess we can move on to our division predictions, which will be pretty fun. I'm interested to see who you have winning the division. But first, let's hear your MVP, your prediction for the NFC South division MVP.
I feel like it's got to be Bijan. It's got to be Bijan. I was going back and forth, but I went with the safe pick. It's Bijan.
This surprises me because I feel like you're pretty low on him then compared to consensus.
I am, but I feel like the tides are kind of turning with me and Bijan, although I'm never going to be, top 5 like Josh is, top 3. But it's got to be Bijan. I was honestly stuck between him and Olave because I love Olave so much.
I like both those options. I definitely really wanted to pick Olave, but I feel like I just have to show love to Bryce Young, as who I think will be the best quarterback in this division by the end of the year. By far, I think he already is before stepping foot on an NFL field. His traits are very rare. He's just a valuable person on and off the field. He's just a leader. He's what you want leading your franchise, and I'm very confident that Bryce Young is going to be a game changer, and I think he's going to take these Panthers to special heights.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, but Bijan is definitely a good shout too. It's pretty incredible. Definitely the only division that we're going to be talking about 2 rookies atop of the division MVP awards. But it is exciting. There are a lot of fantasy football implications, and it's pretty exciting. And then I wanted to hear your, I guess your MVP kind of answered that. I was going to ask you who your rookie of the year was, but I guess that's Bijan.
Yeah.
Okay, well, who would your defensive player of the year be if you had to choose? Mine would be Brian Burns for the Carolina Panthers, just an absolute monster.
And mine would be I talked about him. It's JC Horn. I don't know why I like him so much, but if he can stay healthy, I like JC Horn.
Yeah, that was literally going to be my second pick. Just I think as year ever, I was going to have this Panthers defense playing with fire on their heads, and they're going to be really good. Probably a top 10 fantasy defense actually too. So keep an eye out for the Panthers defense, who actually has an easier schedule compared to a lot of these top teams with hard schedules. So that could be a pretty big fantasy football implication as well. And then the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's hear your 2023 division winner for the NFC South.
Mine is, I think it was a team I talked up the most. I think the Saints are going to do it. Either way, it's going to be close between all 4, but I think it's going to be the Saints.
Yeah, it's going to be probably within a game. All 4 teams are going to be really close. I want to say the Panthers, man. It's going to be really close between the Falcons and Saints. I think the Falcons are going to be slept on. I think Ritter will ultimately hold them back in the end. And the Panthers are going to win this division. The one thing holding them back would be all the new pieces coming in, all the new coaching and
Yeah.
staff coming in. But if that can click, this team can be really special. On paper, it's good. And Ajiro Evero is going to have this defense playing very, very good. And yeah, I just think if the Panthers can click, I'm very confident that Bryce Young will be special. He's a great quarterback. I think he's going to be a top half quarterback in the league, and he's gonna lead this team to the playoffs. And I'm very excited to see what this talented team can do.
Yeah. I mean, of all the new coaching staffs for all the new teams, I feel like this coaching staff has the most potential right off the rip to click right away.
Yeah, I think this coaching staff has the most potential like in the NFL. It's pretty crazy. Their owner just paid like a bunch of former players and high valued guys. So it's really exciting to see what they can do with all this young talent on this Panthers team. I'm buying in. And I love Bryce Young, like I've said all episode. And if Derek Carr does click, then the Saints probably do run away with this division because they're a good team on paper. And that like if he clicks with Chris Olave, that's pretty dangerous.
It does come down to better Derek Carr. I mean, he's getting older. We'll see. Maybe he starts regressing, but I think he's still going to be better than what Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston was last year for them.
Yeah, definitely going to be really fun to see how they do. And then the Falcons, I personally think are just 1 year away. But once they get a quarterback, that Falcons team is going to be dangerous. If they get a really good quarterback, that team with Pitts and London and Bijan with a good quarterback at that great offensive line, it's over.
Yeah, they're just like you said, a year away. I mean, they're just a quarterback away. They really are.
Going to be a really close bloodbath of a division. Really fun talking about it with you. The fantasy football aspect is actually slept on this division. A lot of fun young talent, so really fun.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of veteran and all the way down to rookie. A lot of veteran to rookie fantasy assets in this division. When you break it down, you actually don't realize it, but there's a lot of good options.
Yep, really helpful for you guys' leagues. So tune into the NFL Seekers podcast. We have a fantasy episode every week, and then we'll have the AFC South deep dive as well next week. So it should be really fun. Tune in, NFL Seekers podcast. Leave a like.
Thanks guys.
Peace.
Peace.